Candace, I'm going to start this episode of Spolitics by asking you a question I ask every guest that appears on this podcast, and that is name an athlete or a moment that made you love sports.
I remember sitting on the couch in 1998 and watching Jordan cross up Russell and him like doing that bounce after he hit the pull-up jump shot where everybody knew he was going to hit it. And I was already loving sports, but I wasn't in love. And at that moment, I feel like I was in love because I wanted to be the person that was able to take that shot. I wanted to be the person that worked to be on that stage. And it just kind of set the tone of like the expectation of winning. And the Chicago Bulls did that, 6 times in the 90s, which is wild. So yeah, that was the moment I remember vividly watching and loving.
Yeah, it's I'm not surprised with you being from, basically right outside Chicago that you would pick a Bulls moment as your moment. But it is interesting that you already had some sense that you wanted to be that kind of player for your own particular team as you pursued, a lot of sports when you were growing up. When did you realize you were good, and not just good, but like the type of good that could be special?
I don't know if I ever stopped to kind of realize I was good. I just always knew I wanted to be good. And so when people would put limitations on what I was doing, and by limitations, sometimes it was a compliment. Like sometimes people would come to me and be like, you could be the best soccer player on the team. And I'd be like, looking at it like, I don't want to be the best soccer player on the team. I want to be the best in the state, or I want to be like, whatever. And so I would say my brother's journey where he was going through college and he got drafted in 1997, that kind of opened my eyes to like basketball being a vehicle of seeing the world, but also being able to experience, winning on a big stage and as a career. And so I would say when I started realizing I could be good would be around 11 or 12 years old.
One of the many things I love about your book, let me hold it up nice and clear so everybody can see it. The can-do mindset is that I think anybody who's watched you for any stretch of time knows that you're very competitive, but getting the insight into just how competitive you are was really fascinating. And you mentioned like once you figured out like, hey, this is what I want to do, and everybody might have had their expectations, but yours were different. It reminds me of that part where you wrote about what it means to have Molly goals and Molly expectations. And Molly was, of course, somebody that you played soccer with, correct?
Yes.
Not seemingly, no shade to Molly, wherever she is, not very good. And, finally got to score a goal as you were playing soccer. And, your dad very quickly taught you the lesson is like, yeah, other people can have certain goals, but your goals are way higher than that. Now that you're in retirement and you've accomplished all these things, good Lord, you have won at every single level. How have you been able to keep the Molly goals versus the Molly expectations in retirement?
What I didn't realize from a young age of what my parents were doing was they were building my mindset. And I think a mindset is something that you can shift no matter what you're trying to accomplish. And Molly goals wasn't just for soccer. Like there are some things, yes, you do, in your spare time, art, or you do for fun or whatever, but something that you're deciding to do and you want to be great in, like there's a certain mindset and expectation that has to go into it. And it's doing the little things. It's, obviously relinquishing the results and falling in love with the process. And I talk about that all the time throughout the book is my parents were building that. So whether it was school, the expectations were, was it my best? Did I do everything possible to succeed? And because of that, I think now that the ball isn't bouncing, that mindset doesn't change. Like I want to be in the rooms where there weren't people that look like us in those rooms. Like I want to be sometimes the only and, basically go through the doors that others fought to walk through. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's not a shift that you can do when you're doing one thing or another. I think it's something that just, it is over time. It's over everything. And I'm just grateful for my parents and my environment that I grew up in.
So now that you're at the stage where you're you retired. What is it? Just been 2 years?
It's been a year.
A
It's
year. Okay.
crazy.
Okay.
But yeah, it's only been a year. This is the second year.
This is the second year. So now, to some degree, we're a little bit in the Candace Parker celebration and reflection mode of your career. And a lot of people here. We're in Los Angeles. We're so excited to see that the Sparks are retiring your jersey. And in this book, you really lay out a lot of the growing pains that you and they both had together. So how does it feel knowing everything you've been through with this organization to have your jersey be retired here?
Well, that's family, right? Like we all have family that you go through the ups and downs, the highs and lows. I think your most authentic self, good or bad, with the people that you love and respect. And when I put on that LA Sparks jersey, I never anticipated wearing another one. I think it was a difficult process to decide to go back home to Chicago and to leave an organization that essentially raised me. I mean, I was 22 years young when I got here, hadn't even had Layla yet. And she grew up in LA. LA is home. And so to be able to come back now, it's full circle. It never changed. LA was always home. The Sparks were always home. If I were to close my eyes and envision myself in a jersey, it would be an LA Sparks jersey. It would be a number 3. And I don't know, I just think that it's super special for me. Every day I would look up in those rafters, and obviously at first I would see those championships. That's the banner and where I wanted to hang first. And now to kind of just look up there and see the Kareems and the Lisa Leslies and golly, Pau Gasol and the Kobe Bryant. I mean, just Shaquille O'Neal, and to know that like my jersey's gonna be next to them. I think it's surreal, and it was definitely something that you hope for and you wish for, but to now have this moment, I mean, time flies. It's nuts.
They say time does heal, though, and obviously there had to be some healing that took place on your end. So, what, I guess, fences had to be mended for this to happen?
I've always been extremely close with the ownership. I mean, Eric Holloman has been so influential in not only my basketball career and winning a championship in 2016, but on the business front. Like he was the first person that really talked to me about business and investments and gave me advice and all of those things. And so I don't think that relationship changed. I think there was some hurt there that I would leave. But at some point and throughout the book, I have to try to make myself happy. And at that point in time, I felt like I could not be at my best here. And just in terms of the alignment with coaching, with general manager, when you wake up and you're fighting every single day, and I am obsessed with basketball. I would challenge anybody to love the game more than I do. And I would wake up every day and not want to go to practice and not want to go to play on the road. And it just became, I felt like I was fighting, myself. I was fighting the organization, and I just needed a change. And I think over time, the Sparks have understood that. And, we have continued to connect, and I wish the organization nothing but the best. And now that the year's over where I was in mourning from retirement, I want to go to some games, and I want to watch and, and support an organization that has been near and dear to my heart.
But nevertheless, though, I wonder, did you go through, moments where you thought this was probably not going to be possible?
100%.
Okay. Yeah.
100% I went through moments like that. But at the end of the day, I think we're always working towards what's right. And I think there are so many situations on the men's side where people don't finish their career where they started. It's very few people that finish a long career where they started, but they're still going to be in the rafters. And I think it definitely takes an emotional toll on the organization, on myself, in that we envisioned, I'm hanging up my sneakers and, walking off the court for the last time in a Sparks jersey, but sometimes your plans don't always line up with what the reality is. And I think what was best for us both was the separation. And now I think it's going to be beautiful. And, you know, I hope to have a relationship with the Sparks for a very, very, very long time.
Uh, in the book, I would describe this. I would put this book in the category of radical transparency. And a lot of times, people who have your stature, who've accomplished what you've accomplished, they write a book and they don't tell the truth like you told the truth. And I didn't think you told the truth in a hurtful or salacious way, but you were very accountable for your role in whatever situation you talked about, personal or professional. I'm wondering though, because you know you compared the Sparks relationship to like being like family, right? I know I went through this with my memoir. There were some people in my family who were not happy with what I wrote. Were you at all concerned, given how candid you were with the situation with former general manager Penny Toller, with Derek Fisher, who was your coach? Were you concerned at all that maybe you shouldn't be this transparent about that situation?
My intention going into writing this book was that I didn't want to tell a story that was not mine to tell. And by that, I mean, I don't want to tell for gossip. There was a reason in every single detail and every single thing I told in this book. And I say that, and it had a hand in who I became, who I didn't want to be. And I feel like I took responsibility for a lot of the relationships, conversations, what I should have done differently. However, those are huge parts in my life. And I think there are issues that people deal with on a daily basis in the business world, in relationships at home, in coworkers that you don't get along with. And so I think it was all relevant in why I shared it. The intention to really be truthful, be transparent, but not in like a gossip, like, let me tell you this extra information that doesn't need to be told. Penny Toller and I did not get along. We still don't. I have not spoken to her. I don't wish to. And I think that that's okay. I think I have moved past that point in life. But at some point you have to look in your mirror and say, like, I'm not crazy. And I lay my head down on my pillow every single night, knowing, yes, there are things that could have been better, but where I'm at right now, I'm going to take that lesson and make sure that I apply it to other situations. And with that being said, I don't ever want to be a part of a culture in which people talk to each other like that.
Yeah,
like that
I have to say that was
just,
very eye-opening.
I never want to be a part of
Yeah.
a situation, and I will not stand there and allow somebody else to do that to others. It's just not. And it's crazy because we always look from the outside in and say, if I would never allow that, or like that would never be. And then you're in it and you're like, oh wow. So like, I've let this go for this many years. Now people are telling me this is crazy, and I don't even see it crazy. You know, so I think it was a little bit of like, I use parenting as an example of like, I tell my daughter, you are never letting anybody disrespect you. You never do all this stuff. And then you're doing it. And so that's kind of what I came to. I'll never be in a situation like that ever, ever, ever again. And I think the story needed to be told.
I mean, I honestly, I had never, you know, we hear about all, especially as sports journalists, you hear about all manners of situations. I can say across my multi-decade career, I'd never heard of a team executive coming into a locker room, taking off on players, dropping all kinds of expletives and all that kind of stuff. And I just was like, is this, I was like, I know this is very unusual for that. Um, and, you know, even with, if you think about it, you actually handled that way better than a lot of athletes in your position would have. So when you reflect on it, like you just said, you'll never be in that situation. Are you at peace with how you handled it?
I was always taught
Not
as a
just with her,
kid.
but just
No,
like
but I
all
was
the
always
stuff.
taught as a kid to take a deep breath before. Like, as much as you can separate a situation from your emotions, the better your reaction is going to be. Now, could I have gone off and exploded and went crazy?
And would have been well within your right.
And it probably would have been well within my right, but
Yeah.
it's not who I am. That's not a reflection of what I want to be a part of. I think all in all, like, the situation worked out the way it should have. I think I was hurt because, sometimes when you're going through something, you need some other advocates. And the same thing with Derek Fisher. I didn't go off in the locker room afterwards, and I think to some extent, like, the questions were kind of softballs to him after the game, in which we got swept by the Connecticut Sun. But all that was going on at the same time, and so I one of the biggest arguments Chelsea Gray and I ever got into was like, I would never let somebody do that to you. I know you're young. I know you're new, but I would never sit there and be silent if somebody were to do that to you or speak to you in that way or whatever. And I mean, she's one of my best friends to this day. And I think we grew closer, and I'm proud of the way that she is now because I think she went through that situation. So all in all, I think that we're all where we're supposed to be. And by all, I mean all of us are where we're supposed to be.
Right. Read that however
all
you want to.
All of us are where we are supposed to be.
Yes. I think you can read that one pretty clearly, everybody. Now, everybody knows you're going to Chicago. You win this championship, and I am told that they will also be retiring your jersey as well. 2 professional teams retiring your jersey. LA sort of became home professionally, and personally, Chicago is home. What is that like for you to have Chicago also be retiring your jersey?
It's surreal. I think that if I were to write a story of being able to have people in Chicagoland see me first pick up a basketball for the first time and then win a championship in front of those very people, I mean, I would have told you were crazy. But because of that, I think I felt the moment. Like, I felt the importance of it. And we had like a perfect group. I mean, Kalia Copper, I couldn't be more proud of like who she became in that process. I mean, Sloot Alley, across the board, it was just a fun environment to win in, I would say. And it wasn't easy. It was like, we were 16 and 16.
I thought you guys were
I
500.
rolled my ankle to start the season. We lost 7 in a row. Then, we come back, we kind of get it together. Like, it was this season. But I think the events of the past prepared me to be able to be in those situations and not run from the tough conversations and not run from the fact that, like, you have to be a leader not when things are going great, but when things are falling to pieces. And so I think I'm most proud that my jersey's going in the rafter because I know all of the stuff that, had to happen for that to happen, if that makes sense.
No, typically when I'm interviewing somebody like you who's had such a storied career, I try to remove myself from it because people want to hear from you. They don't give a shit about how I feel. But one thing I personally want to definitely ask you about, and you talked a little bit about it in the book, because I often refer to this happening, I believe, your rookie year. I'm from Detroit. So when you got into it with the shock, I was like, did they just try to kill Candace Parker?
Man, they try to play me. Yeah.
What is it? Planette Pearson?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. What happened? Like, I need to hear it because of course I read it. I was watching it when it happened.
You know what's so crazy is the fact that I'm one that, like, and this is what was so difficult about like USA basketball was like, when we are competitors and you are not on my team, I don't like you. Like, to hee and ha and all this stuff. Now, mind you, Michael Cooper was one of my favorite coaches, right? He didn't like Bill Laimbeer. So guess what?
Was that just old beef?
I don't like Bill Laimbeer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like
right.
The Lakers, Detroit, bad boys. They try to hurt people. I watched basketball in the 90s. I got hyped up by Michael Cooper. So, like, we did not like each other. The head coaches didn't like each other. Lisa's like that. Lisa Leslie's like that. Like, we just, Cheryl Ford and Tweety. Tweety actually was my teammate overseas. I did like her. But, you talk about Planette Pearson and all that. And that had been, the whole game, it was just physical. And the refs didn't get in under control. And it was just honestly building. And I remember being at the free throw line and Lisa Leslie looked at me and was like, bend your knees. And Planette came in. And then it was kind of like, you're not gonna punk me. So I kind of, like kind of whipped around or whatever and went to go get on top. I got a little lick in. And then Tweety Nolan, who is stronger than strong, she kind of pushed me to the side a little bit. But what's so funny is that check, I think it was like after like FICA and like everything that was taken out of a check. After the suspension and the fine and all, I think my check was like $12.07 or something crazy. To this day, I wish I would have taken a picture, but it was like social media wasn't like that. But yeah, it was like something crazy. Like, yeah. So anyway, got fined, got, all that.
Was there any lingering beef after that? It was a
Oh,
lot.
100%.
Yeah, that's
like,
what I thought. I was
Bill Lambier and myself until I think it was like WNBA All-Star when they hosted it. Him and I still were kind of just like looking at each other crazy. It's something that I think as competitors, you can't turn on and turn off. And yeah, like if you wearing the other jersey and I'm with them and they don't like you, guess what? I don't like you either.
So just is part of you, how do you, given what your experience was like as a rookie, I'm sure obviously watching Caitlin Clark, you heard a lot of people saying, oh, she's being targeted. Oh, they're being too rough with her. All these things. I'm sure you had to be laughing your ass off like, y'all want to see targeted? Let me show you what that is. And it wasn't even targeting. It was just competitiveness. I say all that to say is that, great growth in the WNBA and everything like that. But it still feels like people haven't wrapped their minds around the fact that women in this league compete just as hard, if not harder than men. Like there's still a lot of people who have not been able to understand or cannot lose the stereotypes about how women compete.
When you are a generational talent, and I say that in, Diana, Maya, myself, Brianna Stewart, Caitlin Clark, Asia Wilson, you're gonna experience the physicality. Like the scouting report is to stop you, and a lot of it is to be physical. Do you take a couple extra licks from people? Yeah. Like, was I the rookie coming in and got shot, different shots taken at me or hard fouls or, oh yeah, for sure. That's a part of the game. I think the problem is now it's a balancing act of society and the expectations of women versus what is necessary in sports. And for so long they were conflicting in that women in society were supposed to be strong but not too strong, where like your muscles, like I remember not wanting to go up in weight in college, power clinging, because I'm like, oh, my shoulders in the dress are looking kind of muscular. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna bench. Like, who cares? You're gonna see my muscles. So I think it's a different generation of players that are willing to take on society's problems with women head on. And as a result, I think now we're seeing social media explode and more followers wanting to follow women because we are so dynamic in what we can do on and off the floor. But yeah, I think that we still are we're going to have problems because of those expectations. It's like, be competitive. I mean, Love and Basketball, I talk about it in the book, like Love and Basketball, Monica Wright's a hothead, Quincy's over here, like, acting this way, and it's fine. I've seen the double standards in live and in color, as well as portrayed in movies. I mean, look at the sports movies for women. It's ridiculous. It's always got to be, we got to have a love interest. We got to, like, what is it? The twins, the twins movie. Oh my gosh, what's the name of it? Double Time or whatever.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about, where she pump fakes and travels the last
Yeah.
go ahead shot.
Right.
Like, it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
So it's just like, we don't have Remember the Titans and all that stuff to portray what being a female athlete is. And so we have to fight the stereotypes of society, but also we have to stay true of, like, we're just hoopers. We just want to play sports and go out there and not be critiqued and judged for everything else.
Yeah, because the conversations around Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, it's supposed to be a fun rivalry, but it has gotten very toxic in a lot of ways. But looking at Angel Reese, because you, I mean, granted, you weren't like a traditional big because you were among the sort of new wave of positionless basketball. But looking at her game, let's just have a basketball conversation about Angel Reese. Um, if you were her coach, what would you tell her to focus on?
Well, for me, first and foremost, I think that she has the correct coach for her. Tyler Marsh is one of the best coaches I have ever played
I would
for.
say you played
He
for
was
him,
an
right?
assistant coach in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
He's the most knowledgeable person. He's a great skill developer. I mean, he almost single-handedly turned Jackie Young's shot into what it is. Um, and I say that in I think she's in a great situation. For me, the improvement comes from figuring out what you're going to be great at. And we already know she's going to be a great rebounder, but I think it's really mastering like what spots. A lot of people come in and try to get better at everything. I'm going to shoot threes and I'm going to come down and do this, this, and this. But you forget that it really is like the little tiny things. Like, when you're guarding Chelsea Gray, she's going to get to her spot on that right elbow. Like, that's the spot that she's going to try to get to, and she's going to be successful 70% out of 100 going to that spot. My thing is, what is Angel Reese's spot and what is her go-to? And then you master that. And from that standpoint, I think tuning out the noise, I think in terms of basketball IQ, we've even talked about her on the defensive end. I think she could be a problem just with her length, activity, athleticism. So I just think that it's like comparing apples and oranges. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
At least
they don't play the same
they
position.
like doing the like Magic and the Bird comparison. Well, they played similar positions. Like Bird wasn't a point guard, but he played the guard position. Like they at least kind of match up. This, like, what are we doing? So I'm not falling into that. I'm not into the comparison. I think that there are a number of things that Angel can improve on, will improve on in the situation she's in. And I think Caitlin Clark has done that even in her first year in terms of, being able to be that floor general. Her and Aaliyah Boston's connection has really improved. And I think the thing about Caitlin, yes, she can shoot from the logo, but she makes her team better. And so I think just in terms for her, it's going to be moving. What are you doing without the ball in your hands? And I think it's going to be taking care of the ball for her, those two things.
Yeah, because she, I always thought her, as much as she was known for the logo threes and all that, it's her passing with how she can
100%
control the game. Just just freakish floor vision.
Mm-hmm.
I know she had that 10 turnover game.
Yeah.
But that's something.
That's like a learning. I think all of us
Exactly.
young turn the ball over.
She'll get better.
And especially when you're the focal point of the entire defense, you're going to have more turnovers. You're going to have more live ball situations, and the competitive element of you do tend to take chances early on, and you learn that sometimes it might be a highlight, but 7 out of 10 times it's probably going to be a turnover. And I had to learn that because I was, some of the biggest things with Pat was like offensive rebounding and me turning the ball over. So those are the two things. I get it.
You had some really sharp observations in your book about the WNBA and where they are. You see them now. You see the explosion in growth, and they're experiencing something very unprecedented. What do you think the WNBA has gotten right as they try to really capitalize on this moment right now?
Well, I think that the WNBA, in terms of their star players, like really focusing on the stars, because in the NBA, that's what it is. I mean, if we're going to compare, let's compare and really compare something that we can actually apply in our game. And I think now, in terms of the notoriety and the attention, it's matching up with what the WNBA needs to do in terms of how you are focusing on the matchups and the rivalries. And I say that not just in Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. I say that in Asia Wilson and Brianna Stewart, two of the best to ever play the game of basketball, focusing on that New York Aces rivalry, making sure that those games are lined up with, times where people are going to have eyeballs. And for a long time, I feel like the stars came to the league, and then the league kind of diminished the light a little bit and didn't allow fans to really. The biggest thing I think the WNBA has gotten right now is taking the stars back to where they played in college. I didn't understand why we didn't go back to Knoxville for a preseason game. And to be honest with you, similar to the way the NBA does preseason games or regular season games in other countries, the WNBA should do games in, at Notre Dame as a regular season game. But I think that, there are a number of things that the WNBA has changed and are doing right as a result of the number of eyeballs. I hate to say it, the Twitter fingers that are able to make comments and hold the WNBA accountable. But where I'd like to see it go is I would like it to become player first. And I think it's becoming that. We look at the NBA. Adam Silver has a conversation with Chris Paul, LeBron James constantly about any changes they are thinking about making, anything. Adam Silver texts me when I got the Amazon job. He texts me when I had my son. So I think that there's a level of player first mentality. Relationships matter because when you all have a common goal and you all are on the same page, it's just going to work. And so I think we just all have to get on the same page with front office management, all that down to the players.
Since you brought up player first, one of the things that people will probably find very startling reading your book is one of your main motivations why you spent that last year in Las Vegas is because of their facilities and because Mark Davis is definitely one of the more progressive, if not the most progressive owner in the WNBA. The Aces have their own facilities, and it was, to me, this is where the WNBA should be absolutely ashamed. This is the first time in your professional career where you had your own locker. That is crazy. So you mentioned like some of the areas with player care that they could improve on. Were some of these missteps, I think they have it now. They have maternity. They do have paid maternity leave now, I think, right? But they didn't have it when you were in the league. Was this a matter of the WNBA a lack of want to, or a not being able to?
It was both. Mm-hmm. But I think the lack of want to made them not be able to, if that makes sense. And that scared money doesn't make money. You need money to turn things around. I mean, it's an investment. That's what it is. And for such a long time, I think they undervalued the importance of investing in players and the player experience. I talk about this quite a bit in the book about practice facilities matter. You talk about having food after practice. That matters. You talk about not having to wake up at 6 a.m. to fly out of a city after playing till 10 p.m., finding something to eat after the game, getting 2 hours of sleep, then coming back, then going straight to the practice facility, practicing, then going home, going to sleep, and then getting ready for a game the next day, but having to figure out when practice is because you're not able to control it. So you just have to take what you can get. And with that being said, I mean, we said a long time ago, yes, the WNBA is great. Yes, it's you can support. I hate that word. It's not a charity. So if you're in this just because it feels good and whatever, I think the shift came when it became a business and when business-minded people bought into it. I talk about Claire Wusai and I talk about Mark Davis. And you look at the similarities of that Johnny Buss, Dr. Buss, and you look at the similarities between Red Auerbach at Boston. He wanted what he had. And I think it was similar. The New York Liberty and Vegas, I think they made the league better because they had these non-negotiables. Obviously, it helps to have billionaires and not millionaires. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, they invested in the things that they needed to invest in. And guess what? Then now they're leading the league in attendance. It's no surprise. And so I think we were able in the WNBA to get billionaires in, but business-minded people that looked at it as a business and wanted to invest in things that would allow it to grow.
Yeah, because sometimes I tend to think it's the just didn't want to, which they tend to do with a lot of women's sports. Obviously wasn't that long ago, a couple of years ago, when the NCAA got embarrassed about the weight room situation between what the women's players had in the bubble in the tournament versus what the men's players had. And the women, they have like a $500 million contract, right, with ESPN. So they could have given them a weight room. They just didn't want to. And that, to me, is the insulting part, is that a lot of the things that we're seeing the WNBA, unfortunately, it feels like they're still in that mindset that they have to be shamed into it as opposed to being proactive. Luckily, now there are more owners, I think more new owners that are in the league. So it's making the situation a little better.
But the limitations that society has continuously put on women, it's been on full display forever. I mean, just think about where women's tennis is now. If not for Billie Jean King deciding, like, this is bullshit, we're not going to just take this. You know, I mean, you look at down the line, I mean, it's always been taken advantage of. But I think social media and NIL changed the game because now numbers don't lie. Check the scoreboard. We can look at the insights and the clicks and the purchases based off of what you're seeing on social media. And now you can't say that women can't sell and can't draw and can't get eyeballs. And so it's one of those things where it's now what I'm fearful of is the way to take women's sports to the next level is to have women that have been involved and know it be a part of that. So now if everybody and their mama wants to buy a team and you're giving it to everybody and their mama that's lining up because it's the hot thing, I don't know if it's going to be successful. And I would like to see more women at the forefront of leading these organizations and leading these teams to be successful because we know what we came from. You know, we know that it's not one of those things where you just roll the ball out and it's the same in a same market of an NBA team and a WNBA team, you know, and I do think that it is important for us to stand on our own 2 feet. And WSL has done that. They're not affiliated with MLS. I think it has helped the WNBA to be affiliated with the NBA 100%. But at this point, what part of it is going to continue to be a benefit? You know, like you look at the TV contracts, you know, we're signing alongside the NBA, but there's only so many great prime spots that we can really fight for, and there's only so much we can really do on our end if you're still going to the meeting with the NBA. You know what I mean? So it's just there are so many other things. I'd like to see more WNBA teams in non-NBA markets. You know, I think that's important to establish its own fan base, and it's not a copy and paste situation. But I could go on and on. But I think the WNBA is in a great place. I would like to see, yes, more teams, but there's a handful of players that can carry franchises and be 1A and 1B options.
Actually, you were in favor of adding more roster spots before adding more teams, but obviously they have chosen, you know, you got a team in San Francisco now, Toronto's coming, Portland as well, and there are rumors there will be more. I don't know what. Well, one, why do you think that the roster spots should come before the expansion?
I think there are a handful of players in the league that can carry a team. I always used to say this, like somebody on a team has to score 20 and somebody on a team has to get 10 rebounds, right? But what follows that is what really determines the value of the 20 and 10. It's a W or an L. So if you get in 20 and 10 and you're taking L's consistently, I think that, you know, obviously sometimes you're young and it's the pieces around you, but I think there are a handful of players in this league that can be that one option consistently on a nightly basis. And by expanding, now you're taking from an already handful of a group and putting them in situations that I think stretches thin. I think it's the development of players. You're seeing the investment of the development of players in Vegas. Jackie Young was not this great her rookie year, but because of the investment by Vegas to grow her and expand her. I mean, the NBA has an entire league based off of development. And by not having 13 or 14 or 15 players on a roster, you're, I think, stunning the growth of what players that could be contributors could be. You look at Alex Caruso. Can you imagine, like, in the WNBA, Alex Caruso would have been gone. He would have had a 9 to 5. There's no way. But because of his development, he's been able to be a main contributor on a championship team and on another one possibly. And so with that being said, I think we owe it to the 11th, 12th, 13th player on the team to be able to have a chance to grow and not be fighting for your life every single year. And so I think that with the expanded roster spot, you're able to then really truly lean into developing your roster.
I'm gonna pivot a little bit and talk about your family life. You have 3 kids. Oh my,
Girl.
2 boys and a girl. I know, right? They are keeping you quite busy, and you talked a lot about how that going through that motherhood journey with your daughter, who's your oldest, with Lay. I, I marveled at reading all the things that you went through and playing overseas, playing in the WNBA, like managing all that as a young mother. How often or how much do you look back at that and say, I can't believe I actually got through that?
I didn't realize all that was going on with motherhood that didn't have anything to do with motherhood until my wife and I had our son. And there was this like calm where like I woke up in the morning and made coffee and we walked and we took the dogs for a walk and we went to the park and whatever. Like I didn't really have that with Layla. And when you talk to other mothers of like mastitis and it's like, oh, you had mastitis? And I'm like, yeah, it's where your milk duct gets infected and you sometimes get or stocks stopped up and you get a fever sometimes and you start feeling terrible. Well, I was in Russia playing USA basketball when I got mastitis and I had 103 fever and was like trying to figure it out overseas. Like, how do I get meds? How do I like, so my vision of like all these motherhood things is so different because it was like the balancing act of like, okay, well, I can't play today because I have 103 fever, but tomorrow, hopefully my mastitis is better and I can suit up for the USA team. So it's just, I look back and I'm like, one, I'm super grateful for the baby and who Layla is because she is the calmest, most patient, most like mommy. She's like pro mommy in everything I do. I messed up a couple times, like didn't know, what to feed her for her first food. She's still pro mommy. Like, sometimes she's taking a nap on the side of the court. She's still pro mommy. Like, I'm grateful for her. But I also look and I say, what if I would have done it differently during that time? Because it's such a special moment. I wouldn't have. I would do it over again 100 times. But I just think back to like, if you are a mom and you don't want to do that, you should have that choice. And it's difficult for me because I do think I played a part in making strength be coming back in 53 days,
Which is absolutely
nursing
crazy.
nursing her at halftime. Like I made that strength. And so then what's the alternative of weakness? Like, no, it's not taking, like weakness is not taking, is not taking maternity leave. Like take the maternity leave, like take your time, do what fits for you. um and I think Layla has like, she's made me grow up and we've grown up together. I've made mistakes, missteps, but I'm super grateful to be able to have her throughout my career.
Yeah, as I mentioned in the first half of this podcast, like one thing that separates your book, I think, from others is like the depth of honesty that's there, and you were extremely honest and forthright about what happened in your first marriage, and even the process of coming out now in your second marriage. I want to ask you about that process because you were married for 2 years before you actually
Mm-hmm.
came out. So what was that navigating that part of your life like? Because you've been through it before where your personal life becomes the headline. And then the second time around, here you are, you're coming out. So there's layers to this. So for you, what did that time in your life feel like as you figured that
I
out?
realized I was anxious all the time. And I always tell, my nephews, I'm really close with my nephews. And I always tell them, like, as an adult, you should never have to lie. Like, that's your telltale sign. As an adult, when you're making your own decisions, you're paying your own bills, you're doing all of these things, like, you shouldn't have to, like, lie. And I felt like I was waking up every single day and like not only lying to everybody else, but lying to myself. And in saying that I was just going about things because I was private. Like, no, I wanted to withhold that information because I was scared of the scrutiny, of the perceptions, of the looks that people would be like, almost like disappointed or, those type of things. And I was super proud of my family. I was super proud of what I was building. But I was scared of the way that others would portray me or what the comments would look like or all of those things. And when you're operating from a place of fear, I feel like it's like you're anxious every single day. You know, you're anxious when you just go out to a family dinner and like, you know, my wife would like take something off my face and it would just be like, okay, who's around? It's like you can't live like that, man, you know? And I never wanted my son to be able to even think that I wasn't proud of his mom or proud of our family, and that I didn't love her more than anything. And so, with that being said, like, I think it's a process everybody goes through when you are unsure of what the next step or what the next phase of life is going to look like. I never envisioned being with a woman. I'll just be honest. Like when I close my eyes at night, every night, I was like, I need to find my Prince Charming. Like it was never a princess. Like that never entered into my mind. But, you know, as I learned, sometimes life gives you things wrapped in a package that you didn't expect it. And that was just, you know, and honestly, it took me a long time to be okay with myself. It took Anya a long time to be okay with the situation. And we had to give grace to others around us to do that. And so I think the timing, while as I wish I was just like unapologetic and just came out and was like, listen, but we did it at our own process and at our own speed. And yeah, it seems like I can't even imagine that was just 3 years ago that people didn't know about our family.
I have to be honest, that does not seem like the case. I mean, it just feels like so much, you know, longer than that. But you hit on something important before and we move up and wrap it up here about how like it took you a while to accept it. I mean, obviously you guys were overseas together, you're playing and you're growing closer. Like, was there a moment or maybe a string of moments where you're like, I think I actually want to be with this person and build a life with this person?
100%. I think that there were moments where that happened. I am a nerd. Like
So I
I geek
discovered
out on everything.
history and
Yeah, like
books.
museums, I will go for 6 hours to whatever museum. I was in Memphis a couple weeks ago covering the NBA. I was at the, you know, I'm always like that. And it was during those moments, I think, where I was like, I really, 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 really love her. Like I don't know what it is, but I just feel connected to her. And her grace and her honesty and her accountability. My brother said something in our wedding speech, you know, that I hang on to. He's like, Candace needs somebody that is strong enough to tell her no, but sensitive and pure enough to be the shoulder that she will cry on. Like, you know what I mean? Because I'm rough, I'm tough, I'm like, you know, all of these things, but to be able to be vulnerable and, you know, be truthful and honest in every step, I think that that's valuable as well. And so to be able to have her, now I realize like how much I want to work on myself, and she does hold me accountable to those things. And so I think there were a number of moments where it was like we were either at a museum or she would tell me I was wrong and I'd be like, dang, I am.
A quick Pat Summit question for I get you out of here. So you know everybody knows the integral role that Pat Summit played in your life. Pat Summit, I think she would have been 71.
I think 75 actually.
75. Okay. If Pat were still here, you think she'd still be coaching?
She's got grandbabies now. No way.
No way.
No way.
Really?
I think Coach would have hung it up and really enjoyed. I think she was getting to a point in time where like she wouldn't have missed Tyler's kids and being a part of their life and all that. And I think I would have selfishly 100% wanted her to come out here and, you know, spoil our kids as well. I think coaching was in her blood and a huge part, but like Coach never wavered in her who and her what. Coaching was what she did. That was not who she was. And as much as she loved basketball and loved impacting young women's lives, I think she would have loved to enjoy the fruit of her labor and being able to have the freedom to like enjoy the people's lives that she impacted.
Because I look at one of your least favorite people, Gino Auriemma, he's 71. So I was like, it made me wonder that. All right. I end every podcast with a messy question. This is when we
Okay.
make the
Let's
blogs,
do it.
Candace.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
We're going to be all over the shade
Let's
room
do it.
for
Let's
this
do
one.
it.
All right. Here's a messy question. Start, bench, cut.
Oh gosh. Here we go. This is gonna get me in trouble.
Yep. Good. That was the whole point. Start, bench, cut.
I'm about to get in trouble.
Shamika Holdsclaw,
Mm.
Tamika Catchings,
Mm.
you. Start, bench, cut.
Well, I am not without them. So I feel like when you're the blueprint, like if everybody's trying to be you, then like that you're the best, right? So that's why I think Jordan is the GOAT, because everybody was trying to recreate what Jordan was. So I say Shamika Holdsclaw was like what Tamika went to Tennessee to be. I went to Tennessee to be Tamika and Shamika. So I'd have to cut myself.
What?
Yeah, I had to cut myself.
Okay.
I'd have to cut myself. I'd have to
Who you
start
between?
Shamika.
Start Shamika.
I'd have to start Shamika Holdsclaw, and I'd have to bench Tamika. However, I think professionally it would be flopped. I would have to bench Shamika and start Tamika. So there you go.
You're still starting Tamika over you.
I was always trying to be that. So you can't. How do you cut something you're trying to be? Do you know what I mean? So
look at that.
Yeah.
And that is why you're the president of women's basketball at Adidas. Also, good luck on the job with Amazon.
I appreciate it.
Of course, as a broadcaster, it's very few players who wind up having a broadcasting career. I won't say it's successful because you want a lot of shit, right? But certainly somebody who has become like one of the best broadcasters that we have out there. It's very hard to do both. So congratulations to you and everybody out there. Make sure you get the Can Do Mindset, buy some books, very important. It's a wonderful book. I only got to a 10th of my questions. I could have literally talked to you about this book for 2 hours. Very well done from one author to another. So,
well, I respect the hell out of you, and I appreciate you having me on. I mean, what we're doing in broadcasting, I think a lot of it was set by you and your ability to remain true to who you are consistently, regardless of what the narrative is, what the comments are, whatever. You've always done that and stayed true. And I think that that's the mentality I kind of took on as a broadcaster is like, you can't worry about all that other stuff. You got to do you. So I appreciate you for that.
And you're able to do that and getting in a lot less trouble than me. So I appreciate
Hey, listen, there's time.
All right.